What it do, guys? It's your girl Tinah with an H, and I am back with another episode of In Your 20s. Today, y'all, you are in for a treat when I tell you we have the honor of having the founder of the Indian Standard, mental health entrepreneur, digital creator, Janani, on the podcast today. Hello, girl. How are you?
Hi, thank you so much for having me and dealing with scheduling and all of that kind of stuff. So I really appreciate your patience and I'm so excited to be
Oh
here.
my gosh, don't you worry. I feel like everyone can relate to trying to schedule whether it's hangouts, meetings, whatever from the months of November and December, and honestly sometimes even January. It's
Yeah, it's really tough.
it's absolute madness, and I for one, like, we're recording this, guys, at the beginning of December. The fact it's the beginning of December makes me ill at this very moment.
Yes, throwing up.
I'm like, 23, where'd you go? But besides the fact that time is moving too fast, because y'all know how I feel about that, Janani, to kick us off, this is something that I ask everyone on the podcast. It's, how old are you, and what's a random fun fact that you've learned in your 20s?
So I just turned 26 a couple days ago.
Happy birthday! Do you cry on your birthday?
Yeah, I was gonna lie. I do every year.
I also do.
What is? Yeah, I think that makes a good character.
Mm-hmm.
You know, is a mark of somebody who's strong. But what have I learned in my 20s? Honestly, it's just like the importance of letting go. Like I am not always the best in every facet of my life. Of course, like there's some things where I'm really good at letting go of, and then there's some things where I just like am so that resistance is so strong. And so that's the one thing that I've learned is that it's super important to just continuously let go.
Oh, 1000%. And I think that's also like a very big factor of change. Like, you have
Mhm.
to let go of whatever you thought, whether that's, for a new job, you have to let go what you thought before, because this new company might do things the complete opposite of what you were
Mhm.
learned and what you were used to. It's kind of like shedding a new layer, especially, with your birthday. What was something that you tried to let go in your 25th year?
Oh man. Yeah, let's just be honest. I guess like friendships have been like I think it's weird for everybody at this stage of life, right? Like you're especially like the mid 20s, I think cuz you're just out of college, but you're not like that much out of college, but then you're also like nearing 30 and then you're like, okay, I want the rest of my life to look an X kind of way. And then I think like it becomes very obvious on who benefits that kind of positive trajectory, and there's some people who may not want to be there for the ride. And I think my life has changed dramatically this year. Like I got married in May, I moved to New Jersey. I became way more confident in like where I wanted to go when it comes to my business and things like that. I feel more grounded in my belief systems. I think that's a result of being 25. Your frontal lobe, like
It's fully
snaps
developed,
in
as they
place.
say.
Oh my gosh, it snaps in place. And like, I think for those reasons, I've had a hard time with friendships as of late. Just cried about it yesterday. We probably will cry about it tonight because it's just like purging, right? And it's not fun.
Oh
But
my gosh, it's not fun, and it's crazy because everyone who's older than you always says you're not going to have as many friends as you get
really,
older. Like, anyone that I've talked to older about friendships, but I never really believed them until, and I fully agree with you. Now, I'm at the point in my life where it's like I've tried so hard with certain friendships, and it's, you can only complain to, like, so many
yeah.
times, and like finally you see the same result every, like, so and so every period, that at some point you kind of just have to, like, stop really engaging, or like
Yeah.
you have to stop putting effort into what is not giving energy back to you.
And then that's so hard to like kind of make that decision. And like you feel kind of selfish being like, okay, I'm going to walk away and this might be forever. Like I didn't realize I was walking away from a friendship when it happened.
Oh.
And I think like that was also, and I realized like maybe I did take the first steps to walk away. It was like a 10-year long relationship, even more than that. And it still hurts my heart, like thinking like, oh my gosh, maybe I was the one to let go first. And I'm sitting here thinking that she let go first. But yeah, this year honestly lost a lot of friends, and my circle is like teeny tiny now, and it's like my husband and my sister and like maybe a couple others, but my mom, my dad, like I'm really close with my family
Yeah.
now, and I think that that's like the lesson in that way, but or like the silver lining in that way. But yeah, it's hard. I empathize with your situation as well.
Oh, girl, we are in this together. We are virtually holding hands right now.
Thank goodness for the
Oh,
podcast.
yeah.
Honestly, these communities are so necessary. Like you starting in 2020, me starting in 2020, like what would we do without it?
Oh, I have no idea. Like the first episode back for like season 3, so this current season for In Your 20s, it's labeled "She's Back and She's Depressed" because I was going through it. I was like, all right, guys, this is what's happening here.
Yeah.
But I would love to talk. There's so many things that I want to discuss with you. And I feel like it was a good segue that you said, you know, your circle's really small right now. And you did just express it. You got married in May. So
Mm-hmm.
life has been very transformative for you the past year. How do you think your partner has helped you with your mental health journey? And what was this process for you of becoming this mental health entrepreneur?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I think that I have a tendency to trigger a lot of people, right?
Trigger
And
people.
for people.
Okay.
I think that my presence, um, and this is like a theory, and I'm really into astrology. Like I study Vedic astrology, which is like grounded in our Hindu belief systems. And then along with that, I've just learned a lot of things along the way that maybe my purpose is to kind of trigger people in a way, because I was at a party the other night, and they were saying like, oh, we need to like talk to you more because you bring out like things that I don't mean to tell other people. And I've heard that my whole life, right? Like I'm always that person that like people tell their darkest secrets to. And I think like in that same way, my husband triggers the hell out of me. And there's really not that many people out there
Hmm.
that do that, right? I don't really like get that emotionally invested or triggered by somebody, but my husband, my boyfriend 3 years ago, he transformed the way that I look at mental health because he basically removed all blockages when it came to codependency,
Okay.
which I experienced in my previous relationship. He helped me uncover some of my childhood trauma. He helped me understand my sexual trauma. He helped me understand that he helped me embody the version of myself that I wanted to be today, which is like I was on the phone with him when I started my company. I literally like every single brainchild that I had was first passed by him, and then he just like has never ever stopped supporting me.
Mm.
And so like he's so directly tied to my mental health because without him I probably wouldn't have learned as much as I did about myself, and I probably wouldn't be the business person that I am today. Like I probably wouldn't have any of this if it weren't for him. So
That
he's like instrumental.
I'm literally tearing up because that is so beautiful. And I hope to be able to say that about my person one day because, oh, oh, God, that really got me. We're starting off swinging today, huh? And I love
Yeah,
that the phrasing that you use too is so interesting to me because it's like usually when we hear trigger, we're terrified, you know? But also what you're saying, like your husband triggering you, it's for your mental clarity. It's helping you
yeah,
get through these things that you have held within yourself for so long. So it's like
gosh, yeah.
he kind of in a way has like the key to the door for you. Like,
Oh, for sure. In like every regard too. Like and it's crazy how much like he doesn't even have to say anything, and I'll just like blurt out my entire like that's what happened for so long. I mean, we were friends since my freshman year of college. Then he asked me out at my senior year. So we were friends for like 3.5 years before we started dating. And then we dated, and then obviously he asked me to marry him last year. And like throughout that whole time, I feel like me and him kind of grew up a little bit fast
mhm.
in the way that like we both just again triggered the hell out of each other. So it was like you need to improve in this regard, you need to improve in this regard, and like we both challenged each other on a daily basis to be the best version of ourselves without even really saying anything. And it's kind of like you need to be like this type of way to show up for this relationship, because this relationship is not easy. Like he has his passions, I have mine, and we have very independent things that we want out of this lifetime. and purposes, and we're both very purpose driven, and it's not easy to be with somebody like that. Like, they're crazy, right? And so me and him, we're just, yeah, it works, but it's like it took a lot of work, a lot of effort to like understand each other, and like that we're still on that journey. Obviously, we've only been married for like 6 months,
Well,
but
it like you saying that you guys have grown up pretty fast. Like you are 26. I'm about to be 26 in 4 months. And not
yeah,
saying that 26 is a bad age to get married. Girl, if younger Tinah thought she'd have a ring on it by now, you know what I'm saying? But it does take a lot more
yeah,
communication. And do you feel as if this is like the last relationship question I'm going to ask before we like get more into the depths of everything that you do? But like from you guys have gone through a lot of phases together. So, like you said, you were
yeah.
friends first, and then you started dating. How do you feel as like the relationship has shifted from, let's say, boyfriend and girlfriend to fiancés to now being husband and wife? Has there been a shift, or is it still the same
Yeah.
throughout?
I kind of thought there wouldn't be because we got like like one of the biggest reasons why we got married at so I mean I'm putting in quotes so young is because like we were already making financial decisions together, and this is an unpopular opinion, but I don't think marriage is the most romantic thing ever. I think it's a lot of it is really practical, and a lot of it is really like forward leading, and if you have that forward clarity and like you found the right person, then by all means get married, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me it's like I feel like our relationship changed in the way that we like deal with day-to-day things, because like obviously we now live together. We didn't live together before we got married.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's been quite
so
an adjustment, huh?
yeah, yeah, I mean, he's like, we're both extremely clean.
Love.
We both are really nitpicky, but for different reasons. Um, and so yeah, I mean, we get into fights all the time. We make up all the time. It's like one of those things where we probably wouldn't have been like fighting over like little things when we were like doing long distance, but we were probably fighting about other things.
Mm-hmm.
Like, again, we trigger the hell out of each other. So like, we are each other's like best friend. And for that reason, we want the best for each other, and it's not always like the nicest thing to hear, like, hey, you're doing something
Mm-hmm.
wrong, you know. And so we both have had to like understand that, but I would say like the biggest thing that changed between each phase was just more like confidence in our own self, and that was an entirely independent journey. Like he has to, number one, be there for himself and not lean on me for every single little thing, and I have to do the same, right? And like I had a codependency issue before,
Mm-hmm.
so like that has been a major adjustment that I'm like continuously trying to do, is like, okay, like the biggest change between each phase is literally how we approach the relationship, which is entirely independent, which
Gotcha.
doesn't make much sense, but it's like I'm personally growing, he's personally growing, and then for those reasons the relationship changes.
Yeah, but that also all of that like makes complete sense because like you said, you guys are very purpose driven and you have your own goals. So it's nice
Yeah.
that you guys can have that independency to kind of do your own things. But granted, like you had previously stated, you'll all of your children go through him and you're able to
Yeah.
communicate and you guys can talk through it. It's helping each other climb your own ladders and lifting each other
Exactly.
up when necessary, which leads me to like you do a lot, you know, content creation. You've got a 9 to 5. You're the founder of a magazine, the Indian Standard. Tell us a little bit more about how the Indian Standard came to be.
Okay. So it was, and I think I got the date wrong on a different video, June 15th or June 21st. I think it was June 15th, where 2020,
Mm-hmm.
where I was like, I'm going to make a magazine. And I like called him on the phone and I was like, hey, I'm going to start a magazine and it's going to be called the Indian Standard. And he was like, how are you going to do that? And I was like, I don't know. And so then a month later, the magazine was done.
A month?
And so yeah, and it was a month later. Again, like this is that awkward stage between graduating from your bedroom to doing a 9 to 5, right? So we had like all this time on our hands that we didn't know what to do with.
Right.
And like I think that's why like a lot of people's passions kind of ignited in 2020 was because we had the space to do it. Which is a testament to our society today, like how
How there's not enough time and we don't have enough.
we don't have time to be creative, I feel. And so I started my job August of 2020. I'm still in the same job today. And my company kind of started at the same time. I started social media in May of 2020, but like we incorporated and like kind of got everything financially ready to go in like the months of August to October. Um, and it really started because I was posting a lot about my mental health journey. Like I said, I struggled a lot in college. College was like a really hard time for me. And I had depression since I was a kid, and it really exacerbated when I was near the end of my college
Mm-hmm.
experience. So like sophomore year to senior year, I was in like a really bad relationship. I didn't have the best circle. I was not the best version of me. Like going back and like thinking about her, I do not understand her thoughts, feelings, and emotions whatsoever. Like I cannot relate to that girl, and it's almost like hard to like think about like this kind of like the thoughts that she had, because it was entirely suicidal and self-sabotaging to a point where it like I just had to be triggered one more time and it probably would have been it for me.
Yeah.
Um, and so that was a really really tough time. And then I graduated, and suddenly like every single person that I was talking to on a daily basis completely fell off.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, interesting. Like, and it was really interesting because I wasn't hurt by it. Like, I think I was like, okay, that's okay. Phase over. Let's start the new phase. And so I started posting a lot about my mental health journey, mostly about how I was healing from like a lot of the trauma I felt I faced when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
And then how like no one really talks about like the day to day of mental health. They kind of talk about like, hey, this happened. I did this to heal, and this is my result. And I wanted to kind of be a little bit more in the gray area, because it's like every day of your healing journey on the way of you becoming the best version of yourself, or you rerouting your subconscious mind, or you getting more religious, you becoming more spiritual. All those things have like ebbs and flows.
Yes.
And so it doesn't look the same every day. Like me being the best version of myself today looks like doing this podcast really well, maybe getting a workout in, maybe studying a little something, like those kinds of things make me the best version of myself today. It's different from yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I wanted to talk about those nuances. But then I was kind of getting sick of my own voice, and I was like, wait a second, like there's so much more to mental health, spirituality, religion than just my experience. And so why don't we get other participants to talk about their mental health journey? And I've always been a firm believer that like no one's going to be vulnerable with me if I'm not vulnerable myself.
Yep.
So I like that's why I'm really really raw on social media, and that's why I talk about like things that people don't talk about, and probably for a good reason.
Oh, not for a
Um,
good reason. I think what you're doing on social media, and sorry to cut you off, is just so incredible because, like you
well,
said, it's not a clear path or trajectory. So it's one day you're feeling great, you're on cloud nine, and the next day it's like you can't get out of bed, and
right.
people don't talk about that, which is why no one knows that we all kind of have similar experiences in that route. So, girl, I mean, you don't need to hear it from me, but keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. No, I do. I mean, honestly, like it helps to hear it now and then, because even when you were talking about your friendship experience, like I immediately thought, okay, so I'm not alone in that. So it's like we all feel alone because that's the world is trying to make us feel that way, so we can subscribe to beliefs that we don't need.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so that's what really created the magazine. It was just the idea that like let's bring in multiple people, and then it grew to this thing where now I create documentaries along with the magazine. And now the objective is to kind of teach religion in a way uh, that's applicable, because I think like for me, I have this like extreme interest in the intersectionality between mental health, spirituality, religion, because religion my religion is Hinduism, but like all of those really have a lot in common. And like the underlying factor is like to me literature. So how does words, how do the actions, how do all these thoughts processes kind of combine together to express our human experience? And that's my like creative juice every day, is making the magazine, is just kind of finding those ties.
Well, that's incredible. And as we are going into, well, not going, but as we experience our 20s, and this is something that
Yeah.
I like feel very passionately about. It's how, like, our relationship with religion. like, I don't know about you, but for me growing up, I very much like did not like going to church. I'm Seventh Day Adventist. That's how I grew up. Granted, there's definitely some things of the religion that I don't agree with, but that
Mhm.
leads me to like everyone has their own relationship with religion. And now it's like I haven't gone to church in a while, but my mom, for example, like she's always sends me the links Saturday mornings. She's like, if you're not going to go, maybe you want to play it on YouTube. Since I go to church on Saturdays, my 25th birthday was on a Saturday. And of course I cried. And I turned on the YouTube live stream for my church just to be like, okay, this is something I can lean into. This, I just want to hear like the spirit of God and listen to the scripture a bit to help me get through the day. But I know that you've posted about, and I am going to mess this up and I'm going to try my best to pronounce it. But
The Bhagavad
yes,
Gita. Okay.
that, exactly that. I try to do a little bit of research on it. So I know what Google told me is that it's a 700 verse Hindu scripture. So when
Mm.
I hear that, I'm thinking that it's kind of like the equivalent to the Bible, but or am I wrong?
You're not wrong. There's a lot of different scripture books that we consider to be our scripture.
Okay,
Um, and so a lot of people have put both of those together, and I understand why. But there's so many books that are like our Bible in a way.
gotcha. So there's a lot of different texts in order
Yeah.
to like to I'm using quotes here, figure out the religion.
It really depends on that person's denomination. Like that's a whole different.
She took a
There's
sigh,
so
guys. She's like, she's
there's so much to it. It's like it depends on where your family's from. It depends on, honestly, it depends on if you're a man or a woman. It depends on what kind of like what you're trying to get out of it. It depends. Like there's a lot of different ways to practice
mhm.
Hinduism. It's actually not called Hinduism. It's called Sanatana Dharma. Hinduism is a Western term because it's not an ism. It's
Oh.
it's actually like the way of life, and it's not supposed to be this organized religion similar to Abrahamic
Mhm.
religions. It's it you there is one God, but everyone's understanding of who that one God is different. And then there's so many different pathways. There's no right or wrong way to practice Hinduism.
Mhm.
There is scripturally by your family the correct way to do it. So there's a lot of nuances, and it takes a lifelong journey to learn multiple life. Let me take a step back. Multiple lifetimes to learn one thing, because you know we believe in reincarnation, and so it's not just this one life that's supposed to teach me everything.
Mhm.
It's the knowledge of my past life gave me the leverage for this life, which is hopefully this is my last life, but pushes me next to the next life, right? So our duty is just to learn, our duty is to absorb, and our duty is to do right by others, and that's the premise of I think all
Yeah.
religions, really.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Have you always been close with your religion, or was it something that kind of, like me, I was high, then I was low, and now I'm back to like high?
Yeah, I have a boring answer, and yes, I've always been very close to my religion. I think I credit that entirely to my parents. Like they are very, very, very religious and spiritual, but not oppressive. And I think that's the key point is that like my dad's a teacher, right? He's literally a lot of people's gurus. And so he teaches scripture. He's I guess you could call like a pastor. I'm not exactly sure the right translation, but he was like the religious leader for about like 10 years
Mhm.
at our temple, and so he's a wealth of knowledge. And then my mom is extremely, extremely spiritual, very religious as well, and so she's also my Vedic astrology teacher. And so I have both Bhagavad Gita teachers and my dad, and then Vedic astrology and spirituality, and they both teach me everything that I know. Um, and I want to encourage people to go back to their families and kind of heal
Mhm.
that aspect that because we don't want to always ask our parents for religious guidance, right? And like there's a lot of reasons as to why we don't trust them. And so what I want to do is like not only help with maybe forming your own relationship with religion, but maybe dealing with some of the generational trauma that occurs, maybe heal some of the family wounds that you might have, and then ask them about religion, because we can learn so much from our parents. We just have to heal a few things first. I know it's not that easy, but
But it's important to
yeah,
really like have those conversations, because you can
yeah,
learn a lot about your parents and the way that they view religion,
yeah,
and like how their parents viewed religion, and it goes back and back and back. It's just a wealth of knowledge. So who knows, I'll probably
yeah.
call my mom after this. Well,
Tell me everything.
and then, oh my gosh, I lost my oh, this is a question that I had. So we've got the bug, oh crap,
Okay, Bhagavad Gita.
yes, that.
You can just call it the
Okay,
Gita.
the Gita. So you've got the Gita, and then you've got what you were saying, Vedic astrology. Did I
Vedic. Vedic.
Vedic
Vedic.
Vedic
Mm-hmm.
astrology? So from my experience, my parents have always been like, absolutely not. God and astrology, they don't connect. There's not
Okay.
that intersection. But for you, your parents are teaching you both of these things. So is there that connection between Vedic and the Gita?
Yeah. Oh, I love that question. So the Gita is a conversation between God and a human,
Okay.
and it's just a conversation. So the entire book
Mm-hmm.
is basically, the human is, his name is Arjuna. Okay, so Arjuna is talking to God, and basically Arjuna is saying like, I don't want to fight in this war. It's his like dharma, it's his duty to fight in this war and protect the land. Okay, so he's like crown
Yeah.
prince, and so he's saying, I don't want to fight in this war. And Krishna, God, is like, you have to, this is your duty. Like, you can't think about who you're killing. And he's like, wait, I can't think about who I'm killing? That doesn't make any sense. Why are you telling me to kill people?
Yeah.
And I'm oversimplifying it. If there's any Hindu listeners, I'm sorry, but I'm oversimplifying it, because that's the premise of it, is to understand that God is basically answering every single question that we could have in this lifetime. So the Bhagavad Gita talks about mental turmoil. It talks about anxiety. It talks about depression. It talks about healing generational trauma. It talks about meditation. It talks about peace. It talks about love. It talks about duty, dharma, anything that you can think about that comes to an issue, any issue that you might
Yeah.
have. Financial planning, it has that in there too.
I need
Um,
to read this. Let me get the
it is,
Gita.
it is every single issue that you can possibly think of is in the Bhagavad Gita. And this Bhagavad Gita is a conversation. And the reason why there's so much emphasis on the Bhagavad Gita is because it's the book that was given to us before this time period. This time period being 5,000 years ago, it's called the Kali Yugam. So right before this time period of 5,000 years ago is when the book was delivered. So it's almost like the book was delivered to us, considering that it's all about mental struggle, to aid us in this
Mm-hmm.
lifetime. Which is profoundly interesting, that it's all divine timing, that he knew that this time period was going to be a shit show, right? He
Yeah.
knew that this was going to be a depression, this was going to be isolating, this was going to be daunting. Every single thing about our lifetime right now is not easy. Life is not easy at all. And he kind of gave us a book that described that. So for those reasons, so then astrology is a different thought process, because I kind of feel like so there's free will and there's predestination,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like there's things that are predestined, and then you still have free will, because like I can throw my phone across the room. That might not be in my character, but it's free will. I can do that,
Yeah.
right? I can do whatever I want. Um, but we all, like, for example, and I always use this one person in my life as an
Mm-hmm.
example, because he's just like the most perfect example. I have a friend who wants to become an astronaut,
Love.
right? I've said this millions of times, so I'm sorry if anyone's like, okay, you've said this before, but my friend wants to be an astronaut. He literally, like, NASA, Blue Origin, he's like all about that, right?
Gotcha.
He lives and breathes space. And like, all of his desires are very, very aligned. Like, he knows exactly what he wants. I don't have any of those desires. Why is it so individualized, right? That is our karma. That is our destiny.
Gotcha.
Like, I am not gonna my brain might be interested in space because it's very, very interesting,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not going to go and pursue being an astronaut, right? For those same reasons, he's not going to go and pursue creating a magazine, and he's not going to do that. So just like that, we all have different things that we express ourselves in, the different facets of knowledge that we possess, and that's our destination, our predestination. Free will kind of, to me, lives inside of predestination.
Okay.
They're not two things
So they
to me.
coincide.
Like, I think that if there was a circle and it was predestination, I believe that free will lives inside of it. As in, we have kind of constraints on what we will do,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, there's like a wall that we kind of hit, being like, okay, well, I'm probably not gonna go pursue being an astronaut.
Yes.
I'm probably not gonna go do whatever, but I will do X, Y, and Z that's in my karma. So for those reasons, I don't find religion and astrology to be separate,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that astrology provides like our predestinate. It's like a little plate of every single characteristic that we have, every characteristic that our mother has, our father has, our husband has, our sister has, brother has, and where we're going to go and where we've been. Um, and that is given to us by God. And our belief system also has all the planets,
Mm-hmm.
like Venus, Saturn. They're all God in our scripture. So we say like Saturn in Tamil
Uh-huh.
is Sunny. That's my language. So we call him Sunny Bhagavan. Bhagavan is God. So we say Saturn God, Venus God, Mars God. We don't ever call it just the name of the planet.
Oh, guys,
And so
my brain is sorry. I am like, this is so interesting to me. I'm like, oh, there is a connection. We love this.
there is a connection, and I think that studying Western astrology, of course, has provides its own value and everything like that, but I think that through like the newspaper putting horoscopes in it and like kind of having it watered down as time goes on kind of disregards the actual history behind it, which is why I'm studying Vedic astrology, because it's entirely rooted in our religion.
See, that's so like so freaking cool. I don't know how else to describe it besides that because you have the intersection like you said of
Yeah,
religion, of astrology and then like spirituality just it all comes together.
mental health, it's all the same.
It's oh my gosh. And this kind of like so I don't know where this fits, but this is something that I do want to talk to you about. And
Yeah.
I know that you have like talked sometimes about subconscious reprogramming. So when
Mhm.
I hear that, I think to myself, okay, you're literally just trying to reprogram your thought process, which is a difficult thing to do. I try to do it every day and I fail miserably. But you try to do it in a way where you're not even thinking about it. So
Mm.
that is my interpretation, just based off of the phrasing alone. But what, in
Okay.
your words, is
You're
subconscious?
not far off at
Oh,
all.
I'm not.
Yeah, you're not far off at all. So our brain, 95% of our brain is subconscious.
Hmm.
So everything that I'm doing right now is conscious. Which is kind of crazy to think about how many thoughts are going on up here. That's only 5% of our brain. 95% of our brain is recording every little piece of detail that we have ever encountered. And so we collect about like billions of data
Hmm.
every minute, right? And so there are so many different biases, thought processes, words, actions from other people, actions from ourselves that form our belief systems. Like, I am blank. I am unsuccessful every single time I start a new venture. I am always going to be financially poor. My parents don't have any money, therefore I will not have any money. I don't deserve happiness. I don't deserve to be loved because of X, Y, and Z. I don't deserve to have spirituality in my life. I don't, and there's millions of belief systems like that where it's like, and a lot of the ones that I come across a lot are relationship
Hmm.
based, right? Like, I don't deserve love. I am not beautiful. I'm not smart, funny, interesting. I'm not this. I'm not, and there's a lot more deeper ones too, right? Like, I don't deserve a relationship with my husband's family because we witnessed our mothers
Hmm.
experience whatever. So I've had lots of different people come up to me and say all kinds of
Yeah.
things about their belief systems. And the thought process of subconscious reprogramming is that these belief systems are not always, we're not privy to them all the time, right? We're not going to know what's going on in the backs of our brain. That's like, that literally something happened when you were 6 years old and it it's in your brain forever, and that's how you see the world.
Gotcha.
Um, Subconscious reprogramming like helps you challenge yourself to see the world differently and recognize that your worldview is just one lens out of the 7 billion. And even that step to realize that I actually have a lens is
Huge.
monumental, right? To get I used to run healing sessions for about a year doing
Mm-hmm.
this, um, to get my clients and my participants to realize that they're viewing life through a lens took like 3 sessions. Because then they would be like, Janani, guess what? None of it's real. And I'm like, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Some people have come up to me and said, like, I get this so much. I understand this whole subconscious reprogramming world that I can teach it to someone else. And that's like obviously the
Yeah.
biggest, that's what you would want, right? Everyone to say. But yeah, subconscious reprogramming helps you understand your belief systems if you take inventory of it, meaning take one day and like write down everything that you thought about, and then do that the next day and do that the next day, and look at where your thoughts are generally going in a week's time.
Mm-hmm.
Find some patterns, right? Are you mostly thinking about your career, right? Are you mostly thinking about your appearance? Are you mostly thinking about the lack of X, Y, and Z? Or are you thinking about the good things? And there's obviously like there's both that are going to be at play. But then you highlight the ones that are reoccurring and you realize, okay, so what is my baseline belief about this?
Mm-hmm.
Another great thing that you can do is take a look at your life, right? What do you feel like you don't have? For me, it could be like, I don't feel like I have community,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then, so what is my baseline thought process? I don't deserve friends because they probably will leave very soon. Or I don't deserve blank because of X, Y, and Z, right? I don't deserve love because I'm too much, or I ask for a lot, or I need reciprocation in this obvious way. And so there's like all these different things that you can pinpoint to be like, okay, so I'm continuously creating this experience over and over again by self-sabotaging.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that's kind of like a little 2 minute spiel on subconscious reprogramming.
No, but that is really interesting because even as you're saying this, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, right off the bat, I know some of the things is like my career for sure. I've quarter life crisis really be hitting, you know? Where so
Mm-hmm.
career has been a very big topic for me, like in my head. Or let's say I am a very dramatic person. I am a very extra person, and I know that. And what you were saying was like one of those things for me, especially in friendships, is after I hang out with people for an hour or two, I go home and I sit and I think to myself, oh my gosh, I said this when maybe I shouldn't have said that because that's too much for me. Or I was putting myself way out there when I didn't need to. Or, oh, why did I
Yeah.
tell this big group of people, oh my gosh, guys, I forgot to put on deodorant? And I
Yeah.
run to the pharmacy. Like, why did I do that instead of just keeping it to myself? Where I just go and I reel and I reel and I reel. So I'm about to start doing that. I'm gonna see how it
Yeah. How do you get why I trigger people?
yeah, and I love that. I love this effect.
Oh, because honestly, but like and there's this chance that maybe we feel unsafe in bigger groups or smaller groups because we're like, it's not permanent. And so therefore I'm gonna not, I need to measure every single word that I'm saying because then I can preserve the relationship longer.
Mm-hmm.
That's us having an ego of thinking that we can control relationships that way, right? We can't. If people are going to leave, they're going to leave. If people are going to stay, they're going to stay. And of course we can put our best foot forward, but sometimes shit happens, and that's one of the many shits that happen when you're in your mid 20s is you realize like people are not permanent, and they're not meant to be at all, right? We're all going to go. So
Oh, girl, don't you trigger me like that with my fear of death. That one we got.
yeah.
But you're really preaching to the choir here because that's something I also feel a lot of people in their 20s struggle with, that you cannot change people. The expectations that you have for others, throw everything, all of that out the window because in my opinion, the only expectations you can have are the ones for yourself
For sure.
because you cannot change someone. You cannot tell them to do something and expect them to do it the exact way that you want. That's never, ever going to
It
happen.
sounds so obvious when you say it like that, right? And then when you put it in practice, I'm like, wait, so you're not going to show up for me even though I showed up for you? Oh, maybe you don't look at love the same way. I don't know. Like it's very
It's so
let's
hard.
work through it. I don't know.
So hard. I have coined myself as a tit for tat bitch. Like if you do something to me, and if I do something as a favor for you, let's say going to your birthday, and then
Yeah.
you don't go to mine. Oh, babes, I will not be going to your next birthday for that
Okay,
reason.
no, maybe that's not. I don't know. I'm the same way. I'm for sure the same
Well,
way.
that's why it comes to the point where I go, you know what? Instead of me being a tit for tat bitch, why don't I just kind of like remove myself from the situation altogether? And my favorite
Yeah.
thing to do is fully just leave a conversation. Like if it's not going in a way that I think is productive, I'll get up, I'll leave. I'll probably cry and maybe scream, and then I'll leave.
I know, I know. I just I struggle with this whole like I think it's probably in my karma, probably in it's in my chart actually. Literally it says that you are gonna struggle with community in this lifetime.
No way.
And so yeah, it does say
Oh my
that.
gosh.
And I probably will only receive gains of community maybe in my like 40s or 50s. So it's not gonna happen anytime soon. And so I think and everything that I've like looked at astrology, like everything has come true so far. And so, not that I'm putting stake in the fact like, oh, I'm only going to have friends when I'm 40. It's not that. It's more like okay, just like gather the lesson and move forward, you know? Like if you feel like you did someone dirty or if you feel like you didn't show up the way that you wanted to, then show up differently next time. You know, it's not that deep. But again, easier said than done. I myself think it's very deep. So
Right, guys, we're saying all of this right now. We're like, yeah, this and that, this and that. Then suddenly it's going
well,
to
that's
happen.
exciting.
We're going to be like, up, nope, complete opposite.
Exactly.
Well, we are running out of time, but I do want to briefly touch on one more topic, and it's
Yes.
the law of assumption. I need to
Yeah.
hear your thoughts on this because the only law that I've heard of is the law of attraction. Well, I've heard of many laws, but the law of
Mhm.
attraction is the one that we hear constantly, where it's
Yeah.
pretty much, me trying to describe the law of attraction. We all know what it is,
It's like
right?
energy.
Yeah,
Yeah, energy, the fact that you attract who you are and all of those things.
exactly.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
based off of that, I don't even want to guess. I just want to hear your definition of the law of assumption.
So the law of assumption is very similar to the subconscious reprogramming that we were talking about
Mm-hmm.
earlier. So I have a baseline belief, and I'm going to continuously create experiences based on those baseline beliefs. I can change my baseline belief, right? And your subconscious mind requires repetition for anything to imprint. So if and it's best to do it with emotion. So as time has gone on, like if I have a really pivotal experience when I was bullied as an Indian kid in school,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you're ugly or whatever, or you have like a lot of like brown girls, we struggle with like, you know, feeling like we can't be ourselves or we're not pretty enough,
Yep.
we're not light enough, we're not this enough, we're not that enough, our hair's not good, or we smell bad, all these kinds of different thoughts about us brown girls, right? So, um, you know, those moments where we felt really down about who we are imprinted into our brain, right? Those were emotional, impactful experiences. So, in order for me to rewrite that thought process, I won't be able to merely just say, I'm beautiful, I'm beautiful, I'm beautiful, I'm beautiful over and over and over again. I'll have to add some emotion to that and really feel the words, I am beautiful, I am strong, I am kind, and like slow down when you say those things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Affirmations, hear them all the time. When you say nice things to yourself in order to improve your mindset, make sure you add some action or some emotion behind it so that your brain registers it as an event and therefore can help you rewrite some of the negative thought patterns that have occurred in the past. And so that will, in and of itself, help you understand that you can create a better reality for yourself. And a lot of really great ways to do that is to, again, repeat, like what it is that you want to create in this lifetime. Um, and I'm purposefully not saying the word manifestation. I know we don't have much time, but I'm purposely not saying that because it's not about material gain. It's about thought processes that you want to change within yourself and who you want to become.
Yeah.
That self concept, right? Who am I? And understanding who you are is already like a lifelong journey, but the law of assumption, subconscious reprogramming, getting back into your religion, spirituality, mental health, literature, all of these things can contribute to you being that version of you that you wanted to be.
Dude, I could listen to you talk for hours. Because,
No, you.
oh my gosh, because all of these things that we've touched on today, they're so tangible, where it's like so many people, and this is where you're triggering me, like we have all of these thoughts. What you were saying about growing up being bullied as a brown girl, like that's some of the
Yeah.
same things that I experienced as a dark skinned girl, like where, oh, I'm not light enough and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But when as we're talking about the law of assumption, it's like, okay, Tinah, you've tried. I feel like I've definitely the most confident I've ever been in my life. But it's,
Good.
those things still will creep in every now and then at random times throughout your life. It'll come in like during a meeting and I see like a
Yeah.
pimple when I'm on Zoom or something. So
Yeah.
hearing that, and for you to say, all right, create an action. So that way you're, even though you had that awful experience, you can try to reprogram your brain
Hmm.
so that way, no, it's going to lean towards something else or a
Exactly.
positive mindset instead. Um,
Exactly.
Janani, this has been, I don't have words. I'm not even
Oh,
hungover or anything today. Like, but I'm truly just astounded by how much knowledge that you have. And you definitely need to come back onto the show.
oh, I would love to.
But
I would love to. Let's do a part two.
before we wrap up, I know we definitely hit on a lot of things, but if there's something that we didn't particularly get to that you'd want to say, like the floor is yours, like go for
Thank
it.
you. Um, yeah, I mean, I think as long as you like all the listeners, like I hope I hope people realize how much people care about everyone, right? I think like especially you and I who are trying to create this community, it's so important to realize that you are really loved. And I know that you listening to a podcast or you following somebody, like you might not feel seen, right? And I want you to know like how much I do see the struggle that's going on in this lifetime in this world, and I think it's really important for you to take the steps that is necessary for you. Try not to blindly listen to every single person on social media that is here to like talk about their experiences and tell you what to do. I think the one thing that I wish that I could pass on to everybody is to have a level of discernment, be very critical about the things that you consume, and try not to take anyone's advice at face value. Everyone has their own biases, perceptions, thought processes, and that's what we've learned today is that it's one lens out of the 7 billion, right? So take that into consideration next time you get on manifestation TikTok.
Oh, she got beat. We're going to touch on that in part two. Because
I've
the
beat.
manifestation part, I'm like, ooh, girl, because I love me a good manifestation. So we're gonna chat about that.
Let's into it.
But Janani, thank you so much for
Thank
coming on. You have been an absolute dream guest. Before we wrap up, you need to let everyone know where they can find you, where they can read the Indian Standard. Self plug away.
Okay, so I'm by Janani everywhere on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and then the Indian Standard, theindianstandard.co for the magazine. I have a double release happening this month, both the autumnal equinox and the winter solstice issue. And so those both are coming very, very, very soon. But one of them is about devotion, very similar to our conversation today, talking about the progression of a woman and what that means and how that's evident in scripture. And then the last issue, the winter solstice one, is about destruction. So everything that we talked about earlier when it comes to the Kali Yuga and the destruction that is this world and the shit that's going to hit the fan. That's literally evident in our scripture as well, is going to be talked about in that issue too. So
Y'all, I know what you're gonna do during the holidays. We got some readings for you. While everyone's off of their laptops for the week.
I know. Well, it's on print, so there you go.
Exactly. So incredible. Janani, thank you again so much for coming on. Guys, make sure that you follow her because as you can tell through this interview, she's got a lot to like tell you guys and teach you. And plus she's building her own community. So give her some love.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun. And what a pick me up from the day. Seriously, we needed it.
Oh,
I needed it.
I've been in a Vampire Diaries like tunnel,
Oh,
so it was nice to
mhm.
get out of it for a while. Stefan and Damon were a lot for me today. Guys, thank you so
Definitely.
much for tuning in to another episode of In Your 20s. If you enjoyed today's episode, please give us a like or a review or something on Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow us on TikTok and Instagram at In Your 20s. That's 20s with a YS, not an IES. My name's Tinah with an H, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.